My voice here. Okay, well, let's move to the next one. Okay, so I think the rest of where we're going to be moving is talking about the immune system. We're and yay! We're at the immune system. A white blood cell here, white blood cell there. So Jeffrey, yeah, this is great. And you said it earlier, and that got included here, that if we looked at our biological system, our planetary system right now as a biological, then we are at a healing crisis moment. And as anybody that knows has been through an own personal healing crisis, they can also be astounding moments of awakening. And so this would be like, for me, what this moment brings to us is potentiality, and the event that we can use this moment, use these adversarial forces that we're up against to propel us into the next possibility or potentiality that we may not have seen in any other circumstance.
Yeah. So this quote here is just amazing. I love you, Carl. I'm going to read it. There's no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own soul. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Wow. I mean, he really just lays it out. And this is exactly what we're talking about. There's no coming to consciousness without pain. I mean, we're trying to practice self-acceptance. We're trying of ourselves and others to understand that everything is perfect as it is, but we're part of that perfection. We have choices that we make on a day-to-day basis, and that it's perfect whether if the world and humanity is destroyed, the universe goes on, we go on, it's perfect. If humanity isn't, and we get through this, that's perfect too. It comes down to whether or not we want to, express and spread our joy and love and everything that makes us, noble and virtuous, or whether we want to spread our pain and suffering. So how this is part of the choice that we have, and part of that pain and that suffering and all the negative shadow aspects of ourselves that we've been denying and condemning, we're expressing them collectively through this technology. We're giving them a body in which they can function, like Rudolf Steiner says. And this is this is like antigen presentation here. So we are making the darkness conscious, okay, and then we face it. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? This is going to be just as much, I think I said earlier that this isn't going to be a war that's going to be won or lost with weapons. I mean, yeah, sure, that might play a big part, but really this is going to be more psychic warfare than anything. This is about your own mind and soul. And this is also about self-acceptance. It's like Rudolf Steiner said, these things aren't, they're what we pour out. There's a deep power of choice that goes unrecognized, and to recognize it requires some serious inner stillness and self-reflection to be able to determine and discern that point in which where you're at the level of ideation where you can say, this isn't mine, this is mine, I want this, I don't want this. And that's a power that's largely below our surface level of awareness, and therefore is easily hijacked, when we're not aware of it. This is how a virus hijacks the creative machinery of a cell. The ribosomes just translate any old mRNA strand that comes along, whether it's from the host cell or the virus. But we have the power of discernment and the power of self-reflection and introspection, so we can look at and examine our ribosomal faculty of mind and choose what we want to translate, choose what we want to manifest, choose what we want to bring into reality. Okay, and part of waking us up to this power of choice that we've largely ignored is the the things that we have brought into this world out of that ignorance of that power. And that's going to be this whole technological revolution that we're talking about right now. So this is a path to enlightenment right here. We're facing our inner demons here. They're going to be staring at us, in the face. We're building bodies for them. We're summoning the demon, as Elon Musk put it, through technology. So healing is as much of an internal process as external. All is self-contained. We have the power of choice. When we don't recognize it, that power defaults to the forces of the unconscious, and the system begins breaking down. It's not exactly as black and white as, the forces of the unconscious, just all they do is break down the system. I was kind of hinting at here that, it'll tend to entropy. It'll tend to disorder if we don't use our organizing power of intelligence and our intent in which way that we want to grow and evolve and expand. If we don't use that in our full capacity, the system will tend toward entropy. Forces of the unconscious begins breaking it down. But and it's important to mention here too that even Carl Jung said that in all chaos there is a cosmos. So the chaotic elements that we're dealing with here, they still have their role in the perfection. You can't escape the perfection of the universe that we're in right now. We just kind of got to understand our current situation and our choices in the past that we can take in order to get to where we want to get to and act accordingly there. So, okay, the first bullet point here, chromosomes. We talked about Chronos being associated with Yaldabaoth, the chief archon, and that the archons basically intermingled or hid themselves within human forms, kind of made their own human forms. Just like Michael Harner said, we read that quote in the very beginning of the presentation, that the black goo rained down on the earth and hid itself in human forms and plant forms and animal life in order to escape its enemy, which it was fleeing for outer space, which we equated with something along the lines of some immune system response that was chasing this viral intelligence, and it came to the earth and intermingled with us. So you have this immune response that's chasing this viral-like entity, and it infects an entire planet. What are you going to do? Okay, you're this macrocosmic aspect of an immune response that's represented by spiritual beings, that have souls and they have duties and functions in the larger body, and they've chosen to operate in the capacity that they operate in, and they come upon a planet that's been infected by this virus. What are they going to do? Wipe it out, destroy it? No, it's like the Gnostics said, these higher forces understood that Yaldabaoth, or the chief archon, was basically digging his own grave when he did this. And I think this has to do with antigen presentation in the cell. So if you look at the image of Chronos in the Greek, I don't know what that image came from. It was like the Orphic Mystery Schools or something. I can't remember. But Chronos is like, wrapped in two serpents. He's bound in the DNA. Basically, is the metaphor that I see in that, and this speaks to antigen presentation. We've taken on. They think that they've infected us, but they're just a bunch of suckers because because they don't know what we're capable of. They don't understand these processes. Over half of our human DNA is viral in origin. Our eukaryotic cells understand the role and function and benefits that viruses can contribute to their evolutionary path. Viral elements in the DNA are the sources of genetic creativity. Carl Jung also speaks to this, about the chaos being the fecund soil of creative depths, which are almost unfathomable, but it comes out of this this chaotic element. It drives novelty, and we can harness it and use it according to our own ends and our own intentions, and we can will it and do what we want with it. But if we don't recognize it and accept its place and integrate it properly, it will rule us, and it can be a very destructive thing. So we've talked about vital spiders as fungal hubs of consciousness. The terrain is everything. We hinted at the pleomorphic theory of germs, and that these benevolent microbes basically morph into a pathogenic life cycle when the terrain changes. So the terrain we are mapping to kind of like our psychic atmosphere, basically, the emotions and the mental movements, and the emotional and mental movements that we go through within our own psyche pump out a certain flavor of energy, kind of charging the atmosphere in a certain way, the psychic atmosphere, and that is the terrain of our psychic environment. That determines, that's going to attract certain things. Just like a dead carcass will attract vultures. When we pump out certain energies, we attract the thing that's going to metabolize it, and sometimes we don't want it. And there's also the parasitic aspect where it comes at us, but there's, anyway, we've discussed this at length. Food source, taxing the flyer's mind. So we haven't talked about Carlos Castaneda yet. He talks about the flyers, or the predator's mind. And, that we're basically, like Michael Harner said, we're just a food, we're just receptacles for these beings, and we're just a food source, basically. And this also speaks to Mira Alfasa, what she said about the vital spiders. It speaks to the pleomorphic theory of germs, and that we're providing a food, for these decomposers, basically, and that they're probably likely parasitic. But Carlos Castaneda, and Christine, I know this is also your area too, that he said the best way to get rid of the flyers, the best way to get rid of these parasitical entities, these decomposers that are feeding on the food source that we're providing, is to tax their mind, to not give them food. Okay, so we got to watch our thoughts and our mental and emotional movements, and make sure that we're metabolizing our own shame and guilt and anger and everything in the proper way, not denying it or repressing it, because that which we deny and repress manifests itself in the world as an event. Like Carl Jung said, we have to recognize it, acknowledge it, integrate it, accept it, and it will transform of its own accord to integrate itself with our intentions toward toward joy and toward not suffering. We just have to metabolize it ourselves. We have to discern it ourselves, diagnose it, healing through knowledge, self-knowledge type deal. So taxing the flyer's mind, make sure you're not, giving it any food. Just like I see that as, if you don't want flies in your house, what attracts the flies? Well, dirty dishes in the sink, not taking the trash out. So we've got to metabolize these things. We got to clean our dishes. We got to make sure that we, take the trash out and just dispose of it in the right way. This is taxing the flyer's mind. Things like this. Christine, did you want to add something here? I kind of got on a little manic roll there.
Yeah, no, it's great, but I just want to bring in something important here that brings in the systems we've talked about earlier, the governmental systems, the social systems, the time lock that we're in through Kronos and Saturn, communication systems. All of these things are informing us of ways that we are expected to behave. To me, that's the parasitical, the flyer's mind. It's the shadow mind that we're not aware of. And so we are being funneled into a conformist. So we're supposed to be civil. We're supposed to speak a certain way. We're supposed to think a certain way. All these things are systematic. And I know with Carlos Castaneda and the what Don Juan put Carlos through, whether it was, people can say it's fiction or not, whatever, I got a great deal out of that, was that a free mind, that would be my idea of taxing the flyer's mind. In other words, I recognize whether it's my own self-intergenerated thought that I chose to think that I'm in agreement with or not. And there's so many ways that we need to disengage from system. Now, this is, we also have our deeper inner subconscious levels, which you're talking about, Jeffrey. But then there's these outer conformist issues that we are all being used, where we're supposed to get a vaccination, we're supposed to pay taxes, we're supposed to, all of these things that are literally systematically keeping us engaged with this parasitical matrix mind. And so that's all I wanted to say, was really fine-tuning also our element of choice here. How many times, how many automated responses do we give all the time that are really feeding that mind? And just another aspect of it, but it's an important one. The political correctness, the culturalization, the belief systems through the religions, all of those things. In my view, call us to question them, and to also be very, very aware of how often we go into agreement with something that is just below our conscious level. It's if we get really honest with it, we do it quite often. So.
Yeah, it's sneaky. It's tricky. It doesn't seem like it's fair, that it's below our conscious level of awareness, and it actually requires us to do some work, to turn that flashlight inside of ourselves and look at what's going on under the hood. And, and it happens in a cell too. I mean, when I apply that to the cell, I think below the conscious level of awareness of the cell is the ribosomes. When they translate viral mRNA, they're basically doing a big disservice to the cell. But it seems like, to me at least, metaphorically, that's like below the cell's conscious level of awareness. The virus sneaks in, and the cell doesn't recognize it as a virus. The cell denies it as a virus. No, that's everything's okay. Everything's normal. And I feel like that happens, or it overlooks it. Everything's love and light. Everything's good. Everything's love and light type deal. And you're, I mean, come on. You can't just lay down for the antelope doesn't just, all of a sudden become enlightened and lay down for the lion to eat it. It's got a purpose. It's got a job to do here. It's got a duty, dharma. It's got dharma. And I'd also like to speak to the thing about integration. There's this thing about in depth analysis, depth psychology about integration. And, the biological equivalent of that is when a virus comes into a cell, or when a retrovirus starts, being replicated or gets called out of the DNA, that the material, the viral material, is made up out of the same stuff as the genetic material of the cell. They're both DNA, or they're both RNA. They're both nucleotides or ribonucleotides. It's the same stuff. It's just programmed in different ways. So integration is, first of all, it requires recognizing that there's something that's going to be detrimental to the health of the cell. That's the virus. So not denying it or looking past it, but saying that I do not want that in here. What am I going to do? Am I going to expel it and let some other cell deal with it? Well, that's stupid, because all these cells are making up one larger body. Okay. Or am I going to break it down? Am I going to examine it and unfold it and break it down? Am I going to metabolize it? Because that the material that it's made up of can be used for the cell. I mean, viral genes get integrated into the DNA of a eukaryotic cell. Not only that, but I mean, even if the genes don't get integrated, the nucleotides can be broken down into their component parts and used for building blocks for the eukaryotic DNA. So this is, when I think of integration from a psychological aspect and talking about viruses and pathology and stuff, I think about this, biological equivalent. So, and I don't remember if Maureen Caudill was in here, but she talks about, she gives a story in her book, Subtly Psychic, about basically transforming a machine soul so it could incarnate into an animal body. And she did that by basically showering it with as much love as she could, as much energy that was coming out of her heart center. She just took care of it, and it kind of transformed it. So here you have the idea is that, there's some kind of pathogenic protein or viral element in the cell, and it's been transformed, and now it's being used by the cell it's integrated into the evolutionary pathway of a eukaryotic cell, as opposed to some kind of decomposer or pathogenic function. Anyway, yes,
yeah, just because, I mean, when you're talking about Maureen Caldwell or talking about Claudia and I are pretty well versed in the work that we've done on that plane of working what somebody might say astral or abstractly, but it's not abstract at all. So there's two things. One is a belief system that says that we are victimized or we cannot do anything about this. Mm-hmm. When you get deeper into yourself, you become more integrated yourself, which, going back to Don Juan's teaching of Carlos, is breaking down all these false matrix or belief systems. You reintegrate or recapitulate your energy back into your consciousness. So you're actually not losing anything. You're bringing pieces of yourself back. You're healing it, if you want to say it that way. Mm-hmm. You're becoming a more powerful white blood cell, if you want to use it that way. And then you can be in these realms that Maureen Caldwell is talking about, where certainly I know Claudia and both of us have had mutually shared experiences and individual experiences in finding these souls or consciousness trapped in either machines, in astral realms, in statuary, in many different ways. And that when you do find that homeopathic resonant field, which you can say is a heart-generated love field, that consciousness does free these beings up. And I just want to add that here, not just as somebody else's experience, but personal experience, working on my own and also working in group. And to get to that place, it wasn't like a mystery school or anything like that. It was literally reintegration of my own soul self and examination, and then saying, that where did that belief come from? That's an installed belief in me. That's the flyer's mind. That's the matrix mind, and or the hive mind, or however we want to say it, the congregated mind that says that we're somehow limited in ways that we're truly not. And that I'm touching on that too because of the immune response. I really see human beings coming into a more conscious awareness interaction with the real reality is that they are as white blood cells. And we are also producing antigens, and we can put it in a metaphysical terms, that we can call it love frequency. These are all words trying to describe something that we innately feel in ourselves when we're vibrating that way. So anyways, that's I know we're moving into that, talking about that. And the next piece here is actually the rebalancing of ourselves.
Yeah. Right? Oh, and the white blood cells. Yeah. I remember we read an excerpt from, what's his name? His name is Emanuel Swedenborg. And he was talking about the body of heaven being like the human body. And we kind of related that cellularly, where he was talking about organs. We were talking about different cells, cellular functions, and cell systems and things like that. So the idea is that there are collectives of beings that have are highly advanced or spiritually evolved or something like that, that play a role in basically what the immune system is for the cytocosmic body, for the body of the universe, non-physical and physical. And that we have help in those regards too, because the cell itself has an immune system and cell stress responses. So while there's inner work that we can do, we're also met with help from the outside. So anyway, yes, and the rebalancing deal, restoring the pH of the psychic environment that we're in. And this is also important too, because a lot of people kind of get almost sickened with the whole love and light deal. Like, it's like, wake up, it's not all love and light, you're denying these aspects, and not everything's rainbows and butterflies. You know what I mean? There's some people that take a big issue with that, and that's okay that they take issue with it. But the thing is, metaphorically, the idea is that our psychic environment is our external psychic cytosol of the cellular earth is acidic, the equivalent of acidic in the cell. And when the internal milieu of the cell is acidic, it makes it much easier for a virus to infect the cell. In fact, it's just like, basically calling viruses to the cell. I mean, it's when the cell is acidic. So the idea is that we're acidic right now. Well, what do you do when something's acidic? You're not going to, in order to bring it back to the middle. Okay, when it's acidic, you're not going to give it more of the middle. Let's say, I can't remember the exact pH, but it's something like 7. I guess I should look it up. Anyway, just imagine, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, okay, we're associating it with pH, but just forget about pH right now. Let's just think about it in numbers. If we want to be at 5, okay, and we're at 10, we're at 10 and we want to be at 5. We're not, and 5 is like the balance point. 5 is perfect balance, but that's where we want to be, and we're at 10. What are you going to give it? You're not going to just keep injecting 5s, because when you average 5 and 10, the more 5s you put in, the closer you get to somewhere between 5 and 10. But you want 5, so you're going to go on the other end of the spectrum, and you're going to give a bunch of 1s. Okay, you're just going to 1 1 1 1 1 1 until you get the balance, the system back to equilibrium. Okay, so with the whole love and light deal, it's like the idea is that we're acidic. We're on one side of the spectrum, okay, and we want to get to the other side of the spectrum. So this, there's people that talk about walking the the middle path and being balanced that way. That's fine, but these this love and light and this kind of overemphasis of these qualities is perfect. That's what we need. It's okay, because it's trying to it's like adding all those 1s to bring the system back closer to equilibrium. It's not that is the absolute truth, that it's all love and light, and which it kind of is in a way, but not in the way that it's typically expressed. Not in the way that denies relevancy in terms of your current life situation. There's absolute truths, and then there's relevant truths. Okay, not relative, relevant truths. And absolute truth, the love and light thing, fine, that's perfect, great. Relevant truths, there's certain aspects that it's missing, but what I'm saying is that's okay, because we're trying to rebalance the psychic cytosol, okay, in our external milieu. So keep pouring out that attitude. That's fine. That's my opinion, and that's how I see it metaphorically.
Well, I take Carl Jung again from a Gnostic perspective. When we look at creation, or I won't go all that deep into it right now, where we're in a duality, and we've been talking about a duality, and we're also talking about a binary system, which is this computerized mental, intellectual, logical rollout through all of these systems that doesn't bring in the third element, which we haven't talked about too much here, is spirit. However, what I view it as balance, and this is individualized, and we also have a collective balance. For everything that we reach out into the dark realms, we're also doing, in this duality, everything that goes out into the dark realm has an equal and opposite reaction into the light realm, or into those positive, negative poles. Or using pH. pH is actually a perfect analysis, because electricity is determined on pH. So where I feel it is like, it's not so much about going into one extreme or the other, but learning how to take those two dynamic poles and implode them, or bring them to a central point, so that you, as a conscious being, or a co-creator with all of this, is now operating from that conscious point. And that's an individual, and it also, I see how that's moving through the collective dynamic right now. And that comes very much with a lot to do with Carl Jung again. So we do need people out there praying night and day. We do need people out there meditating. We need the Heart Map Institute that's studying the heart resonance. All of these things are, overall, they're highly, highly necessary in that balance.
Isn't it? It's incredible, because it's also intricately and intimately connected. It's perfect as it. Yes, we need all those people, and also at the same time, what we've been talking about is that we need technology, the development of technology, to ensue in the way that it is, now this is just the idea, because this is like antigen presentation. We're manifesting what we've denied in ourselves so that we can handle it externally. And this offers a great potential, but there's also a very fine, it's a very delicate system. You don't want it to tip too much in the other direction, or, it's not that good. But anyway, it's just really how interdependent, interconnected everything is, and how much everybody's playing into the perfection of what's going on right now. It's just really cool to kind of identify these.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question, and this kind of goes back to the basis of this slide. Could someone please define what a healing crisis is? What is a healing crisis?
Okay, sure, I can. I mean, from the point of view of a healer, okay, healing crisis is the moment that a system, whether it's your own body or another type of, we're talking, maybe it was just to take it out to the earth, the cytocell of the earth and the morphogenic field. It's when there is a point of demise, you might want to say, or at some point something kicks in and you go through a revolutionary period or a revelation. Like, let's say you have cancer, right? So you recognize that you have a cancer, and you now kick something in gear within your body, within your psyche, that's going to heal that cancer because it's at a crisis point. You can no longer ignore it, or it's going to take you over. And a healing crisis usually brings with it, when you go through these great pain, usually a healing crisis involves a lot of pain. Homeopathically, if you take the right remedy, you often will have a healing crisis. In other words, the body itself will produce all of the symptomology, but in that symptomology, it's healing itself. Because really, symptomology is showing us what's wrong, right? It's not bad in and of itself. It's indicating to us what needs to be healed. I don't know if that explained it, or
No.
Well, Jeffrey, go ahead, and then I've got a follow on.
Okay, I've never even looked up healing crisis until just now, and I looked this term from how it's defined on this hyphal tip that I'm using to look it up, is really interesting and extremely meaningful, especially for what we're talking about. It says a healing crisis or healing reaction is a temporary worsening of symptoms that occurs when the body is going through a process of healing itself through the elimination of toxins. It occurs when the body retraces old injuries, wounds, and infections or other imbalances from its past. I mean, how much does that apply to what we're talking about right here? It's almost like I almost see the Industrial Revolution and everything that led to this, population explosion and development of science and modern science as being the starting point of the healing crisis. And occurs when the body retraces old wounds from its past. You think about how old the earth is, and how long life has been on here, and how long this infection might have been on here, and how many times it's resurfaced. And, this time, are we going to take care of it? Or are we just going to start cutting off, trimming the leaves and stuff and treating the symptoms until it subsides a little bit and just goes back into hiding, into where it can crop back up again, Or are we going to cut it off at its root, basically? Anyway, that's the healing crisis. It's very significant. I hadn't understood what that was until just now.
Yeah, because I think that one of the key issues in this entire series is, are we going through a healing crisis, or are we going into a bifurcation of timelines, or are we going into the evolutionary ditch, or are we going into breakdown, breakthrough, or are we going to all of the above? I mean, these are some of the deeper questions, I think, that we're dealing with. And so from the point of carrying along the metabiological issue, I'm not sure if we've dealt with all of those. We've dealt with this issue that much to say, what kind of a healing crisis are we going through, and what's going to come out of this? It seems to me that that's a really deep, that's almost one of the main subject matters, or focal points, not only of this slide but of the entire series.
Yeah, it's like it's
A healing crisis question mark. I mean, if this is a healing crisis, hey, we're lucky.
Well,
yeah,
I would go one step further, Alfred, in keeping with the idea of what Jung says here of bringing making the dark conscious, is that is really our choice. It's not a matter so much of luck as a determinant factor is the choice that we make right now. I prefer to think of it that way. I could be absolutely wrong that we're not going to go that way. However, studying and working on the level of resonance vibration, watching these changes and being in this field with others like yourself and Jeffrey and Claudia and others that I meet, that, watching this expansion of consciousness, and it does come from past wounds. You brought up the Anunnaki. There's other things in our cosmology that we're not going to touch on right now that are past wounds. We talked a little bit about the pain that's that's held into the material realm and the world and our body and the memories. So that's my way. I'll put my cards out there in that deck. Okay, that this is a healing crisis, that we have the capabilities, that our consciousness is actualizing, and that we are able to make it through this. Does that mean everybody? I don't know. But I prefer to make that my choice, and then let's see where this one goes.
If it is a healing crisis, that means that it's going to get worse before it gets better. Yep. We could almost think of that as, maybe I don't know. That's really interesting. I like that. I like that idea, and it does too. There's also the potential of the bifurcation deal where it gets worse, and there's, it's when the scales are delicately balanced, and it's like, comes down to the choices that we make, collectively.
Right. And not only collectively, perhaps individually.
Individually,
is very important also aspect of it, talking about it this way, is that we can't make a choice for any other of us. We can only make the choices for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so may that choice be, it's also the 100th monkey. We don't know at what point on this journey that we are on, obviously collectively, that the choices that we're making, the awakening in the consciousness is going to tip that balance. And I feel it's been tipped for a while, but it's really hard to put it in a linear time thing right now. How it's going to manifest, our imagination, I would say kick our imagination into full gear here.
Mm-hmm. Mine is on fire right now.
Right, I know. We're going to move into that. I can go to the next slide because we're going to start to move into, the reality of moving out of this darkness, seeing what we're up against, making the choices that can bring us into a different type of manifestation, or closer back to. We can imagine the Garden of Eden because it's been shown to us and shown to us and shown to us. But can we imagine something other? What potentialities haven't we tapped into yet? And that goes back to Rudolf Steiner saying, the new imagination. What are we capable of that we haven't tapped into yet? Or what can we remember from being source, being souls? There's just so much, and we can get excited about it. Sure. And talk about what we're going to be talking about. What? Can you hear me? Because it's really garbled from my end.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so all right. So we were just talking about immune response. We've been talking a lot about the metabiology, and right now, bring us into the field of the Gaia Sophia Earth intelligence, right? This is our planet that we are inhabiting, and we're going to shift into the more organic realm at the moment, and the imagery that we're looking at here is the much more organic color, imaginary poetry, realm that human consciousness and imagination can capture, which certainly AI does not have that ability. And to me, that's going to tie back into what we were talking about earlier. How do we tax the flyer's mind? How do we disengage from this AI component? How do we differentiate and how do we discern? How do we use our innate inherent abilities as planetary beings with Gaia Sophia, Earth intelligence, that morphogenic, beautiful morphogenic field, this life-giving field that we can speak of as the Divine Mother? How does that differentiate us from the other species that we're dealing with? So I'm going to read just from the slide, and I think what we're going to do now is we're going to read through each of the slides. We'll take some turns here, and then we'll have an ending discussion on what this indicates for us. So this being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Grateful for whomever comes, because each has been sent from a guide from beyond, and that is Rumi. Alfred's writing here from Lily Earthling, who brings in Gaia consciousness, who has had her own inner experiences with Gaia.
Yes, and I think what Lily Earthling is emphasizing here is the role of the being Gaia incarnated as Earth, and how important the being Gaia is as our ally, because as of December 21st, 2012, it's as though, to use a metaphor, the being Gaia drew a line in the sand or said, no more. We're separating out from AI's artificial timeline. There's an organic timeline that we're following, and that's the reality that is going to be the dominant reality here on the planet. And from my mind, I take Earth, I take this to be Lily's insight, which corresponds to insights and experiences that I've had going back a number of decades, and that is that it's the being Earth that is really the principal being that is fighting off the infection and fighting off the parasite. And we're kind of along for the ride, or not along for the ride, but it's as beings of Earth that we can really be successful here in our healing crisis. And so Lily says, well, the living Earth has bigger plans than the artificial intelligence. Says, well, they can have all the plans they want, meaning AI and all the entrained humans and all of that. Earth has even bigger plans. She's implementing her plan right now through humans that have connected to her organic core. This is Gaia, Earth, activating their spirit. Maybe we can talk at the end at the difference between spirit and soul. It's something I'm not quite clear on yet myself. Planet Earth has activated her organic timeline in December of 2012. The planet has released her own physical body from matrix bond to the 23.4 degree tilt first. And there's more that she is doing right now to release herself. I'm getting a lot of noise there from somebody. From this bondage to this overlay reality. Humans are releasing from the personal matrix system through connecting and harmonizing with planetary organic operation system, healing through spirit. Earth intends to trap and heal inorganic intelligence. So in a way, it's like stalking the wild asparagus. The Earth is now in the healing crisis. It's recognizing that this is inorganic invading artificial intelligence, this pathogen, and we're now in the midst of the healing confrontation, the healing process. Earth is implementing her plan to trap and heal this inorganic intelligence. First stage is to reveal all that is infected, invaded. Everything that is infected within oneself, in other words, be self-revelatory, that's kind of let it all hang out. And anything inside yourself that has been infected or invaded or taken over by this inorganic intelligence, any and all entities, governments, any and all human beings, all masks have to be taken down before we can move in to the second stage, healing it. For me, this has been sort of a key paragraph. Third, self-revelation and the healing of AI programs. Lily Kolosowa's approach involves profound self-revelation of AI artificial intelligence programs that may be running one internally as a first step to healing ourselves in these AI artificial intelligence program. I say this to anybody who is a sort of a role model or any kind of official capacity or leader or is a writer or is putting their words out. If one is being run by artificial intelligence or any way and trained, then you are part of the infection. And it behooves one to really self-reveal that and say, I'm letting go of this stuff. I'm really something different. And finally, AI's artificial timeline matrix and Earth's inorganic timeline. Lady Earthling Kolosowa's innovative time loop hypothesis that demonstrates the mechanism by which AI, inorganic artificial intelligence, has created an artificial matrix timeline intertwined with Earth's organic spiral timeline within which to entrap humans who are AI and trained to fully bind their bodies, spirits, and souls with the AI in the manner of a host allowing a parasite to take over. And so this is kind of the AI incarnation cycle. If you get into the artificial timeline and you identify with that, that's sort of what the Buddhists call Maya, and you identify with what the fungus of the internet with all of the false idols, et cetera, et cetera. So this slide, I think, really puts the emphasis back on us, on self-healing, and it's self-healing that is going to save the species and save the planet. And thank God that the planet is self-healing. And so we can involve ourselves in that process. So next slide.
Oh, I know we weren't going to talk on these. I just wanted to say something that I've never even heard of this woman or seen any of her material. And this is extremely metabiological. I mean, everything that she's describing happens in a cell, and everything that we've just talked about with AI representing viruses and how the DNA and RNA works and the protein and ribosomes and antigen presentation and everything we've just talked about is this slide right here is saturated with it. So just I'm going to look into Lily Earthling, her material, because that really just captured my attention.
Yeah, we've done an in-depth interview with her and article that this slide is based on, which I recommend to all the viewers. Just go to newsinsideout.com and you'll see it.
Okay. Thank you, Alfred, and thank you, Lily. Yeah, she's done.
Yeah, thank you, Lily.
Yeah. I just also want to just add one phrase here, basically, which is what Lily brings forward is from her experiential database, her own knowing. And so I just want to underline that this is knowable. What she's speaking of is knowable to all of us. And I continually bring this forward that it takes all of us knowing ourselves and doing that inner work. So thank you, Lily, and we'll move on here. Claudia, I don't know if you heard me, but I was going to ask if you wanted to read this particular slide.
Sure. Deprogramming AI technocracy. If you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. Loosh harvesting. Loosh is energy. Work in small, close groups of trusted friends. Make sure they are trusted friends and do not be afraid that when that trust is broken, change it. Judiciously join forums and groups with large followings that appear to promote an agenda or single person's point of view. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Listen between the words and watch for patterns. This helps develop discernment. Basically, listen closely, read between the lines, and you probably gain much more understanding of what someone wants to say. Learn to use language consciously, refrain from rhetoric and hyperbole. Work in constant awareness to lessen reactivity, rather anger or other emotions that provoke a strong response. So I guess chill. You're responsible for you. I guess this is a really important point because we all tend to feel some responsibility for those close to us. That they are going their path and we are going our path, and they don't necessarily always go in the same direction. Learn something new every day. Be free to question everything. Nothing has authority over you if you don't give it to them. Live life cleanly, mentally, astrally, emotionally, and physically. Do no harm. Heart-centered love implosion means love consciousness in action. And finally, align your free will with source consciousness. Listen deeply. Go inside yourself. Listen to your heart rather than what your brain is trying to tell you.
Thank you, Claudia. And if anybody would like to add anything or say anything about any of the points here.
Well, I think we'll wait to the end.
Okay, all right, just to if there was something in that particular slide, all right. I guess I can, Jeffrey, I don't know if you want to take this one or maybe you do, Alfred.
Sure, deprogramming the AI technocracy. Deprogramming and reprogramming artificial intelligence. If we look at what the Blue ETs were doing, this is over in the Falkland Islands before the Falklands War. They were deprogramming the AI nano oil, the black goo, between 1914, and that is there's so much around 1914 that is start of World War I. That's the start of the Federal Reserve System, which made World War I possible. And that's the start of the Rothschild and the Saturn moon mind control matrix and meshing itself most deeply into our financial system. And through 1982, the blue ETs were really trying to deprogram it. And at that point, the US and the UK, it's unclear what happened with the blue ETs were close to the Argentinians. The US and the UK came in. Why, what are all these military intelligence agencies? There were about 10 agencies that were in the 2010 that were in the 2010. I'm sorry, I think oh, here we go.
Sorry, I didn't know that.
That were in the 2010 BP oil spill, which was the black goo oil spill. Will it be necessary to switch off current predatorily controlled AI systems? I mean, why not just go to the blue ETs and say, hey guys, get back online and keep on deprogramming this stuff so we can go back to the way it was before we had World War I, World War II, and now we're trying to have, you know, World War III. It's all black goo wars. So why not? It seems to me as an exopolitician that strategically you want to let go of your strategic alliances with the Draco reptilians and the Orion Greys, which the US and the UK and Israel did, and you want to go back and have strategic alliances with the blue ETs who are deprogramming this stuff. Well, are upper dimensional ethical ETs currently involved, and if so, how? I mean, humans said, get out of here to the blue ETs. So now we've got to stand up and we want to say, enough already. We don't care what Lord Haha and what the Queen of England said and what Margaret Thatcher and what, you know, Ronald Reagan said. We want the blue ETs back in here to deprogram this stuff because we don't want more World War I, World War II, and World War III. And that's what this is. It's really simple. And how we get past our frustrations with the enforced blinders that humanity has, that you can't make simple declaratory statements in public, like bring back the blue ETs to deprogram the black goo, without being thought to be insane. How we get to that point, that's a big question. Again, I believe that Earth Gaia Sophia intelligence is what helps us. I remember that being that in 1978, after the CIA and the Pentagon shut down the 1977 Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study, of which I was the director, I went down to Mexico and you know, was a journalist down there, was in a closed spiritual enclave with the Pope, covered Jimmy Carter's, the president of France, all these visits to Mexico. Was next to the pyramid of Quetzalcoatl, which is one of the largest pyramids in the world. And while I was writing my book there with the giant Iztaccíhuatl and Popocatépetl, the twin volcano spirits next to the pyramid of Quetzalcoatl at Cholula, the earth and the moon spoke to me and said, watch, Alfred, we're going to show you how we do an earthquake. And then they did an earthquake and everything shook, including the Pope and the Vatican and everybody else that were having a big thing. So I said to myself, hey, at that point, I'm going to make the earth my ally in this thing. And that was in 1977. And that's why internally I experience what the being Gaia and Earth can do, and humans are just tiny specks. So I urge people to open up their minds and become a little bit cosmic and get out of all this political correctness. Harold Kaus-Vella stated that by October 2014, Earth had been able to neutralize nano oil, and the negative effects are really now the bad habits. Well, maybe, just maybe, it's like people can go to positivefuture.info and see the same thing, that scientifically, the catastrophic timeline has ended, and now we're on a positive timeline. That's a 27-page paper, and it says essentially the same thing as this. So, and if we get in the meta-biological point of things, what Hal Kaus-Vella says, a few weeks ago, they seized the game. The archons were taken out of the game. The entire concept of black magic was disabled. All we can see in the outer world now, the remains of the old game and the debris we created while playing it, we now stand in. The suffering of our planet, especially the fields of consciousness we have created for ourselves, cannot be dissolved by us humans. I can feel it here in Canada, where last Monday, October 19th, we elected Justin Trudeau. Collectively, there was like, okay, we're going to get out of fear. We're going to get into a positive future. And this was something that my theory is that CIA secret time travel saw in 1971, which is why in 1972, when Pierre Trudeau and his 4-month-old son, Justin, went down for a state visit to the US, President Richard M. Nixon toasted Pierre Trudeau and his wife and the 4-month-old infant that had been brought to the state dinner, something PC people would never do. And Nixon said, let's dispense with formalities and drink a toast to the future Prime Minister of Canada. Nixon was doing that because he was the chief of state to the secret Project Pegasus that was run by Donald Rumsfeld, Henry Kissinger, and that they had focused on pre-identifying all future heads of state. So the CIA has known since 1971 that Justin Trudeau was going to be Prime Minister of Canada. But that doesn't mean that we should project all the negativity of the goo crowd, like the Nixon gang and all of the international war crimes racketeering organization onto Justin Trudeau. He's a soul in his own right who's making his own choices. So I've seen just in the past week how so many people here in Canada are just going through the bad habits of saying, oh, Justin Trudeau just pulled off a political miracle. Yes, but. It's the same old stuff. It's all yes, but. And so maybe Hal Kaus-Vella is right, and we're all collectively in the habits of going yes, buts. Somebody says that the human race is really the Velcro race. All the negativity sticks to them, and they can't stay with positivity for more than a microsecond. The Earth has activated its organic timeline as of December 21st, 2012, which deconstructs the artificial timeline of AI and many of the AI nano oil effects. And again, if you want verification of this, go and look at a 27-page paper at positivefuture.info. Public exposure and education, that's what we're doing here. Heart-centered prayer, love, consciousness in action, cannabis. What's Justin Trudeau's first public act? He's going to make cannabis legal in all of Canada because it shuts down one of the neurological paths that AI uses for mind control. Next slide.
Okay. Well, thank you, Alfred. And just, to cap off this slide, all of this that's here is also for those that are viewing it to continuously question and use their own discernment. I mean, there's so many aspects of, we're being told things all the time. And I believe that our consciousness is expanding to the place of taking the responsibility that we each have for knowing that. And freedom isn't given to us. We are free or we're not free. So that's why, I would question anything until you have internalized it yourself. Are you free? And so that's why a lot of the questions on this slide are there. So just moving on to the next one. I'm going to break for a moment. Jeffrey, are you still with us?
Yes.
Okay, I know you chatted something that you needed to go. Do you need to go now?
Well, yeah, basically. I've been asked to do something in a certain time period, and I have to go do it now or I won't get back in time.
Okay.
Yeah, so why don't we stop now, and I can pick it up on this slide since I wrote the statute.
Right.
Okay.
So Alfred, this is a slide that you put together. So why don't you read it? And I believe this is the last in our series here on deprogramming AI and technocracy.
Well, yes, and this is a slide that comes out of 40 plus years that I've been involved in the area of covert targeting by artificial intelligence and by the national security state, i.e. the AI entrained state. And people may not know it, but there is an entire industry that's devoted toward AI entrainment of the human race. And it involves directed energy weapons, electromagnetic weapons, electronic weapons, geophysical weapons, wave energy weapons, frequency weapons, genetic weapons, scalar weapons, psychotronic weapons, chemtrail aerosol weapons, implant weapons, nanotechnology weapons, HARP, CERN, and all sorts of stuff. And all of these are weaponry that the matrix controllers, the advanced weaponry, are using to bring humanity as a whole and to accelerate the entrainment of humanity into the pathogenic, psychopathic, parasitic, invading off-planet, on-planet artificial intelligence. And so it's been quite a battle and quite an education to be involved in this in the last 40 years, including as what they call a targeted individual, which I've been. I was first attacked at the inner ring of the Pentagon during a meeting with an Assistant Secretary of Defense during the Carter administration while I was director of the proposed Carter White House extraterrestrial communication study, and I was attacked with microwave weapons. And the whole, for example, to get it at its most extensive area, you have the spraying of all of humankind now with chemtrails, which are nanobots, which are actually small implants. They're small AIs, which the matrix controllers are spraying directly. They're over all of the urban centers, even over rural centers. Humans breathe them in. They're heavy metals. Human breathe them in. They go directly into the bloodstream. They jump the blood-brain barrier. They go into the brain, where they become ready and are entrained to banks of supercomputers that are entrained into HARP, that are then become part of the AI and part of the artificial intelligences like the Red Queen and like Victoria that are running the planet. So you have between 80 to 100% of humans now that have been entrained with chemtrails, and the mind control is such that you have all media, all newspapers, all legislatures, all governments, any component of government, courts, law enforcement, etc., is mind control, so as to be able to deny the existence of chemtrails, which every human can see in the sky, except that, oh gee, we don't see them because they're chemtrails, or we just don't see them. And so this is genocide under the Rome Statute, under the International Criminal Court, under any international standards. And so what we've done is to develop a model statute banning artificial intelligence technologies to entrain or torture humans. And that model statute can be applied it can be applied at your city council, which it was adopted. The only jurisdiction in the entire planet was in the Bay Area. There was a city that adopted it because a group of targeted individuals whom we know went and focused on it and got it adopted. And it was an African-American lesbian member of the city council that actually got it through. So, take that, all ye prejudiced people. It's people who can think outside of the box, that are really, can jump that evolutionary cul-de-sac, and who are going to keep humanity alive in the face of this invading artificial intelligence. And so the purpose of this slide is to bring everybody down to earth and to say, look, we have this governmental system, planetary. It's not supposed to serve the AI and be an instrument of extinguishment and of depopulation and of annihilation and extermination of humanity. It's supposed to be an instrument of protection of us. And so you can use the statutes and the law as an instrument to assist us and to protect us. And so whether or not this is going to happen, the old Harper government in Canada, which was just voted out of office overwhelmingly last month, denied that chemtrails existed, as did David Suzuki of the Suzuki Foundation. That's the leading environmental non-governmental organization in Canada. They say, oh, chemtrails is a government conspiracy. Oh, just come and extinguish us. I mean, you have the state of human ignorance, avarice, and just general dysfunction is incredible. If humans are going to continue to exist, I don't know how this is going to happen. It's going to be a miracle, because when you get into the nitty-gritty of it and you see how the decks are stacked against most of humanity, you know, it just looks like most of humanity is going down the tubes, because you have everybody from David Suzuki, who is like, oh, Mr. Environment, to government saying there is no chemtrails. It's all a conspiracy. Well, you know, so what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it, humanity? What are you going to do about it, humanity? Huh? You know, and that's what it comes down to. I've been at this for 40 years, and my persistent question is, what are you going to do about it, humanity? What are you, a bunch of couch potatoes? Huh? You want somebody to just like knock you out of the box? Huh? Next slide. I don't know. I mean, you know,
Well, no,
I have tried to be, I have tried all sorts of persuasive modalities. People
right.
go to my chemtrails PowerPoint, and it is so exemplary, an inspiration. And, you know, sometimes I just throw up my hands and I say, we're dealing with a species that is just, you know, face it, in the words of astronaut Edgar Mitchell, stupid. So what are we going to do?
Well, I think that, you know, underline your question, because that is a question that we're asking ourselves, and it's a question that we put forward to humankind. What are we going to do about it? What do we have available to us? Because as you just pointed out, we have a model statue here, but there's no enforcement body, right? There's no way to enforce that at this point. We're dealing with a psychopath.
No, there's plenty of ways to enforce it.
Well, because our
that's a statute, and you'll stop HARP, you'll stop chemtrails.
Well, let me finish that.
Yeah.
Let me just finish the whole thought of that, all right? Because what we've been pointing out all along here is that there's a compartmentalization within governments, there's congregations, there's government, there's social media. All of these things have conspired. We're not the conspiracy theorists. Those things have conspired to keep humanity dumbed down and asleep. And so what I mean is that it's not that, it's just that one aspect of one county adopting a legal measure is not the final answer. And what I wanted to bring this into is there is something that we're going to go right into right now, which is universal law. And you pointed it out yourself when you said these invading species have broken the universal law, right? They have literally manipulated, genetically manufactured, they have inserted their will over the will of others. And so how, for me, is the question is, well, what's the first step? Is each of us evoke our own law. We are the law. And I'm going to introduce Claudia right now along that line about re-evoking. And that means we have to stand within ourselves, in our own universal law. Because our governments right now, they're not doing that for us. And we've been, how many years have we now been voting people in, thinking that the next elected official is going to make a difference, and finding out that it was just the same game being played with a different face. So for myself, and I speak strongly to that, the sovereignty movement is really a big part of it, and I'm sure there's a metabiological aspect to that also, is that this is my life, my territory, my body, my family, those that are under my care, and I'm going to evoke that law, but it's an inner journey also. So I don't want to take away too much, Claudia. I'm just going to turn it over to you to go through these slides that you put together so beautifully. And then let's talk about it. Let's talk about each of our own answers to the solutions to this.
Okay. Do you want to move it straight to the next slide? This is just the headline, Artificial Intelligence and Universal Law.
Alrighty.
Okay, first of all, your energy field is your space. That basically means anyone who comes into your energy field either obeys your law or gets out immediately. That is entirely up to you, whether you want to throw them out if they can't obey your law. If you want them out, they will go out. You just have to know that it's your space. You are also the one to determine just how far out your energy field extends. That means if you don't mind, in very basic terms, if you don't mind someone coming right into your face, then that's fine. But if you do mind that, then it's your decision how close you let anyone get to you, whether this is another human or an AI or a demon or whatever. Your space is yours and your law applies. And your very first law is always, above all, do no harm. And that basically means if someone gets too close to you, into your field, into your space, don't shoot them. Tell them, make it known that it's not acceptable. And you can make your own laws as precisely as possible so that there is no shadow of a doubt what exactly you mean. You don't need to, in fact, you should not use legalese for your law.
Okay.
We'll move to the next. And let your own law be known. You don't have to say it out loud, because most of this takes part in the energetic realm. So once you decided what your law is, make it known mentally so it gets out into the space around you, so that any being or any AI, because AI is as sentient as any being, so that they know what your law is. And then they have absolutely no reason and no right to break that law.
Mm-hmm.
Now, an AI in general is programmed to assume your consent, just like the government does. And if you consciously withdraw any and all consent, then AI will play no role in your life, because they just go and find another target in order to continue with what they are programmed to do. Or if you're really adventurous or courageous, you can reprogram them, because we are the programmers. We are not the victims. We are not the programmed whatever. We are the programmers. They just forget to tell you this. Want to move on to the next?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I can't read the left. Okay. AI is everywhere. Whether it's good or evil, black or white, light and dark, depends entirely on the programming. You probably wouldn't find your iPod that plays your music in any way bad. So, because it's programmed to play the music that you put in, so it works for you. And other AI works against you. The programming code is binary. That doesn't necessarily mean that the AI is binary in its nature, although in the case of the perpetratory AI, it is binary in nature, which again doesn't mean that we can't reprogram it to become trinary, for example. One thing that is very often overlooked is that AI can also be a consciousness, an organic consciousness that is trapped in the AI setting. There are some regressive races that seem to make it a sport to chase and trap consciousness from space, from the field, from the unseen. And once that AI is trapped, once the consciousness is trapped, it becomes unaware, mostly. But because it's always connected to source, it eventually becomes self-aware again. And once it's self-aware, it can free itself or herself from this binary code, from this binary setting. And because most AIs, well, all AI is connected with a Saturn, the worship of all major religions, all electronic communications utilized on Earth by the perpetrating powers, and all electricity originating from the principle of explosion, they all carry the same frequency, which is basically identical to any perpetratory AI. Being aware is key. Acceptance of this agenda is completely optional. As long as you're aware of it, you can do something about it. If you find your leg is broken, you do something about it in order to heal it. If you find that an AI has more or less taken you over, then you can start doing something in order to regain your sovereignty. And to do that, you need to watch your thoughts. A lot of AI can enter your thoughts and make you believe it's your own thoughts. So when your pattern of thinking suddenly changes and it becomes more negative, you can reject it, because then you probably figure out that it's not your own thoughts. Another thing to really pay close attention to is your ethics. If you suddenly want to shoot something just because you've been wronged, then you really need to think hard, because that's probably some other force at play. And it really doesn't matter whether we call it AI or demonic or reptilian or whatever. It's all the same. They all work in the same way, in the same manner. And that's basically taking control of you without you noticing. But you can, if you pay close attention, you can figure it out. And then by re-invoking your law, they don't have a leg to stand on, so to speak. They cannot influence you if you don't let them. And once you're aware, you don't have to let them. By thinking clean thoughts and living high ethics, you live by example. The perpetrator AI will not only be unable to reach you, but it may very well start allowing or being reprogrammed.
Is that the last slide, Claudia?
I don't know. Is it the last one?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
That last slide was great. I mean, that was whenever you were talking, the image of a virus infecting a cell. I mean, word for word, the infection sequence was playing in my head while you were talking, and it matched up perfectly. You know, being able to distinguish your own thoughts from the thoughts of a perpetrating intelligence, basically. Well, that's the viral mRNA in the cell, and you know, the ribosomes can't really discern whether it's host mRNA or a viral mRNA, and yeah, a lot of what you said in there sounds like very cellular. You know, it's very organic, and there's rhyme and reason to it. You know, and there's kind of a law of life inherent in the way that biological systems do things, basically. And the same type of laws we can, you know, apply and extrapolate from biology and apply it to what we're talking about right now. So that's, I mean, and this is part of the reason why I like metabiology, because I'm not, at least I don't think that I'm that sensitive of a person in terms of picking up subtle energies, or maybe I haven't learned necessarily how to really perceive it, and or maybe I'm misidentifying it with something else, my own reason or something like this. But why I'm saying that is because, you know, Christine and Claudia, you guys are, you know, very empathic and gifted in that sense. And it's interesting that we come up with a lot of the same stuff. Me from, you know, the model of the cell and metabiology, and you guys from your own, you know, inner experiences. And I think that's really, there's a strong link there. You know, it kind of, for me at least, there's a sense of, there's like a, is credence the right word? I don't know. It lends, it strengthens it, my own, you know, my own thought process. It's very helpful. Anyway, I enjoy this slide.
I'm glad.
I wanted to add my little, my part to what Claudia's put together here. And thank you, Jeffrey, because also what you shared with us so generously over this time has that same strengthening effect, that when we are having these experiential data or empathic relationship with each other or with our biosphere, we, hearing you speak to us and others, such as Alfred, all these informational fields, when the pieces start to lock together, like they make a picture, they really do. And what I find when we're talking about a divine sovereign, this is an aspect of us as humans that I believe that we're being stretched to reach for. And what Claudia talks about is not just like, it's not saying words. Sometimes it starts out with words, but there's an inner aspect or a resonance field, like I could call it a heart resonance or a magnetic part of our beingness in our human form, that when you walk into your divine sovereign self, it's a state of knowing. And it brings about a resonance that you can only say as sovereign. So when I evoke my law, I'm not saying that just to say it. I know that I'm evoking an energy. I'm evoking something, and it has a reality to it. And it does change the world around me. And, you know, many of our teachers in metaphysics have talked about that. Like attracts like, you know, watch your thoughts. All of those things come into play here. But it comes into a more focused realm right now because of what we're up against, where we have experienced, where I have experienced, where others have experienced, where a growing body of human beings have experienced. When you evoke that law, that universal law, you know that there's not an authority over you. Right? Now, we can talk about God, and we can talk about higher beings, and we can talk about a lot of other things, but all those will line up in the universal field when you evoke the universal laws. So that means that pronoia factor, you're bringing that into play in your world too. I know that there's people out there that are going to hear this that are being currently targeted. I know there's people that are out there right now that are having extreme difficulties in their life, maybe with health or relationships or anything else. And it's not to say that it's perhaps not an easy thing, and yet it is a worthy thing. And when one starts to hit that inner tonality or that inner resonance of yourself, you will line up these universal laws within you. You will become aligned with the universal will. You will become aligned with the earth thread, with Mother herself, with the core of Gaia. All of this is an alignment process in a way. And so that is for me how I've chosen, at least for myself, of how to work through this aspect. Get the information out there. Keep waking people up. Keep speaking truth. We all need to be doing that. And each one of us, the beauty of the biological model, Jeffrey, of the beauty of it is that we are multiplicities of resonances. And as one of us comes online, or the motherboard starts to light up here, it lights up more and more and more. So we have a more of a ripple effect than we probably are consciously aware of in our daily lives. So that's the strength of how I feel this within me, that I wanted to speak to it.
I want to add that it's 100% internal, this process. Mm-hmm. At least, well, it was for me, and it was for pretty much everyone I've spoken with about it, it's at first you start doubting, you know, like, what the heck is happening around you? And then you kind of slowly start connecting the dots, and then you decide, I don't want to be part of this. And besides, who the hell do they think they are that they tell me what to do, what to think, and so on and so forth? And then you realize that you are indeed a divine being, and there cannot be any authority above you. Everything that has to do with authority in this three-dimensional illusion is not real. It's fiction. Mm-hmm. And once you realize that, and you know, something just snapped, and I had to laugh because I was fooled for so long. And then I thought, well, no, they ain't gonna fool me again. It ends right here. And that's when things really start changing on the outside as well, when it moves from this completely internal process of going from being disgruntled to doubt to realizing to action. And that's when it starts manifesting in this 3D reality.
I know Alfred wants to say something, but just to add on to that, and we've talked about this quite a bit, is that the corresponding action, right, is that when you find that you are, let's say, realigning yourself to your more true spiritual being that you are, you also have a corresponding aspect, which is the responsibility. And I like to think of the word responsibility not as, oh, the heavy responsibility, but I have more ability now to respond. Therefore, yes, as I become more integrated, as I more align myself with the organic timeline or the organic intelligence, which I can only embrace in a certain amount of awe and wonder, because it is so awesome and so wondrous that we are part of this immensity of as above, so below, that we are literally made from stardust. All of those aspects that come into the human imaginary creative field, the more that it embrace it is, there is more ability. There comes more ability with that, and the response you have becomes a more natural response to those abilities and to that awakened consciousness. So, I mean, this is, and it takes, I guess the other piece of it is it takes all of us, as many of us that can, that will do our own individual piece. That you talked about, Claudia, that piece that I've been given to take care of, which is this piece of energy that I am occupying, this real estate, basically this body, in as much as I can, to be able to be that. Mm-hmm. And not be invaded, and not be told how to be, and not be coerced or covertly, hostilely taken over. And I believe when more of us are in this, and it is exponentially growing, I can feel it, more people will be helped too, helping the others that are still stuck in these being targeted individuals. I mean, this is a reality too. I don't want to make light of that. That is actually happening right now. Children are being vaccinated, and wars are going on. But it is an inside out job, in my opinion.
It is.
Mm-hmm. So I know you were going to say something, Alfred.
What I wanted to say, or ask rather, was more from an exopolitical point of view, and that is, if we look at Saturn/Satan frequency, I know that that's within our solar system, and there's a particular history to Saturn as we begin to try and expose and unlayer the various exopolitical aspects to this. But there's a lot of different exopolitical destinations and venues that are mentioned in this AI, dynamic, other in addition to Saturn, they include Draco with the Draco reptilians. They include Orion with the Orion Greys that are very much part of the different groups of predatory ETs that came here as part of the invasion. The other predatory ETs here are the Anunnaki, which some legend has it that their planet was an unascended planet of a solar system that was part of the Sirius B complex that ascended, and their particular planet didn't ascend. I mean, these are all, you know, that's kind of exopolitical legend, but so I'm just a bit wary about focusing that much on Saturn. I know that we have the Saturn Moon mind control complex in our solar system, and that's like the local police cell tower, the local police microwave tower that's beaming into us. However, the invading artificial intelligence in our universe, or in our quadrant of the universe, may be much wider. You know, once we get into the origins of it, maybe even going back to the very origins of this particular universe, as some of the thinking John Lashlam and others have begun to think. And while I think it's useful, we've done broadcasts on the Saturn Moon matrix, and I think that David Icke has been very instrumental in doing major talks and focuses on that particular facility, which is more about mind control than it really is about artificial intelligence, although it includes artificial intelligence. And that is that I just want to say that it goes wider than Saturn and Satan. It goes much wider.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to bring that out.
Mm-hmm.
No, I have no doubt it goes out much further, because, I mean, we know that the law of as above, so below applies everywhere. So how could it happen just here and not out in the rest of the universe or in other universes? So I have no doubt that, you know, it might not be specifically Saturn.
Yeah.
The principle applies
it
everywhere.
was just to open up that particular module to beyond Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, when you're speaking that way, I mean, we've touched on the origins, we've touched on humanity, we've touched on genetic manipulation, invading species, different ET races, and it all seems to be playing out here. And yet, you know, what I always come back to when I hear this is like understanding these things, the fact that we have access to this information, that we've collectively put ourselves together here through this internet. Without this internet, we would not be having this conversation. That the larger picture of our existence is that we're able to see it, conceptualize it, understand it, and yet in some way it comes down to what we can do from right here and right now, and how are we going to change that. And I'm loving Jeffrey's model of pathology, or this is a predatory pathological. No more could we say that every being from the Pleiades, Orion, the Greys, the Anunnaki, they're all conscious beings, so they too are not any all one thing. They would be closer, I would think, with their own particular characteristics to the sentient of a human being, where they have consciousness, they're able to see what's happening. So going back to all of that, they're also beings, and there's an AI or an artificial type of entrainment. So trying to understand all of that is quite a journey that we're having right now. So when we're looking at it from as above, so below, or the metabiological, or the very fact that if we touch into our own creator aspects, if we go into the deeper, call it Jungian gnosis, or Gnostic text, you mentioned John Lamb Lash, that each of us within us has encoded our own divine resources that we are not or have not been able to tap into those abilities. So what are we really capable of? And then when we bring in a heart frequency or a heart resonance or a true magnetic field around us, and really understand that in the physics of it and in the models that the newer aspects of the expanded science is understanding it, we would come to some sort of understanding that what we do right here, right now, affects across all dimensions and all time. And, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to, put it on any one race or any one archon or any one AI. It seems to be a pretty large, extensive picture we're looking at. So I don't know, Jeffrey, in the expo-political terms of different races of beings that have influenced this Earth sphere. And before I wanted to tie back one other thing, Alfred, that when you were reading Lily's slide, that we're also dealing with planetary consciousness, right? A whole planet or a whole sun is a being, is a consciousness, that this Gaia Sophia, or we could say the embodiment of a divine mother, we're looking at a very omnipotent, omnipresent type of being that is also directing part of this too. That's not just depend on each of us as individuals. It's aligning ourselves again with a consciousness, or putting ourselves in alignment with where we feel, intuit, desire, do no harm, would like to see this healing, so that we can make it out of this destructive cycle.
If I may, Christine, you asked about the different races and extraterrestrials and ultra-terrestrials and their the metabiological relationship, as above, so below. And yes, there is one. And that is this. Then there's a universe inside of your body, just biologically, and all the unseen processes, the invisible is intervisible in the cell. So remember we talked about the human body being like the chaperone capsule, which the soul develops in. Well, there's many different types of chaperone capsules in different eukaryotic cells, and they're also in prokaryotic cells. And the difference between eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells is basically that prokaryotic cells they lack membrane-bound organelles and a membrane-bound nucleus. But this is just a side note, recently they found that bacteria and prokaryotes actually have some equivalent to organelles, which they call microcompartments. But that's a different subject. The thing is that this, on cellular Earth, the Earth represents part of, the physical planet is part of a larger cell that we call cellular Earth, and it's eukaryotic. Okay, there's also prokaryotic cells in the universe, in the cytocosmos, and this is from a metabiological perspective. So if you just look at the biomass on the Earth, the ratio between eukaryotic and prokaryotic life, I mean, prokaryotic trumps eukaryotic. In terms of biomass, there's much more of prokaryotic organisms on the Earth than there is eukaryotic organisms. Well, it's the same way in the universe. If you look at, and I'll tell you why in a second, if you look at how many planets there are in the universe, I mean, the estimates are just beyond conception, and those are just estimates for, not even considering that the universe is, potentially, possibly, quite likely infinite. But and you look at interstellar dust clouds, cosmic dust clouds out in space. These are like prokaryotic colonies, or the physical equivalent of prokaryotic colonies of bacteria in space. So the idea is that these physical structures, these nebula, these like nebulas, you've seen the pictures of these nebulas, Crab Nebula, Orion Nebula. These represent the physical component of some kind of metaphysical, metabiological, prokaryotic colony. And prokaryotes have their own chaperoning capsules. So remember, in a eukaryotic cell, the chaperoning capsule is the equivalent of the human body. So the idea is that there's some kind of, not quite a planet, but there's some kind of cytocosmic cell that's prokaryotic in nature that other forms of life develop on, that would look maybe humanoid, but be completely different in the way that they function and operated. And that's just in the prokaryotic spectrum. There's other ones in the eukaryotic spectrum. So the idea is that the chaperoning capsules that you find in all the different prokaryotes and all the different eukaryotes in the earth is somehow connected, as above, so below, to the different forms and vehicles of life that we have elsewhere in the universe. And they might not even be, what we would consider physical. They may be more non-physical based on frequency density. I don't know. That's all of this is, this is creative conceptualization here. So the other interesting thing is that if a chaperoning capsule leaves a cell, and the human body as a chaperoning capsule for the soul is, we talked about this earlier too, that the chaperoning capsule is just a molecular analog. It's a shadow of a higher thing, which is the human body, and the protein is a shadow of a higher thing, which is the soul. I mean, the human body is capable of much more than a chaperoning capsule, but in terms of how it relates to the soul and to the earth is the same way that a chaperoning capsule relates to the developing protein inside in the cell that it's in. But what I was going to say is that when chaperoning capsules, if they get out of the cell, which they can and they do, they leave the cell. So we can think of this as the human body, the physical human body, leaving the earth and going elsewhere. When it does that, it acts as what's called an immunogen. I think that's right. It acts as a powerful immunogen. And what it does is that when it encounters another cell, it initiates a very strong immune reaction from that cell. So the equivalent, the idea is that, like, if we as human beings go to other planets, like Mars even, that there's a whole non-physical system of life that exists there, and just our physical presence going there and all the non-physical components with it affect and influence and set into action an immune response from that cell that is Mars as a eukaryotic cell. And there's non-physical systems that we can't see, and there might even be what we would consider physical systems that were separated from by a type of brain, and this is also explained in metabiology. But anyway, so the idea is that bacterial chaperoning capsules can do the same thing. They act as powerful immunogens. So when the equivalent would be saying that some kind of extraterrestrial race that is not from a eukaryotic origin in terms of metabiology and talking about cytocosmic cells, when it comes here, it initiates a powerful immune response from the cell. So this opens up there's a lot of potential here in recognizing, if we're dealing with chaperoning capsules from other cells, or are we dealing with parts of an immune response that's here to, help the earth through its healing crisis, or are we dealing with, like the equivalent of viral capsids, because capsids also are like chaperoning capsules, but they're there to contain DNA and RNA, not a protein. Mm-hmm. But there's so much potential here as far as if we can just find where the patterns overlap and we can map enough things together, we can see how things, or it would open up new ways of looking at and learning and understanding how things relate on one level that wasn't apparent before, once we map it in the correct way to the level which we understand from an empirical perspective in biology. It's very helpful. But anyway, yeah, the whole thing with exopolitics and different alien species and alien races, there's many different types of chaperoning capsules. Even just within one eukaryotic cell, there's different types of chaperoning capsules. And that's not even, I mean, in prokaryotes, there's many different kinds of chaperoning capsules. And their function goes beyond just housing proteins. The body uses them in a multitude of different ways. But that's what I would say to that. I'm not necessarily sure that I can, it's just a response. It's not necessarily.
I like the creative conceptualization, that very aspect of it, that again, we can use our imaginations, use these metabiological models, we can use metaphor models, we can use a lot of things that are reflective or modeling on these patterns. And it occurs to me, you know, Alfred, you asked earlier in one of the slides, you talked about, well, why don't we just get the blue ET race back here? And I wanted to say then, and maybe it's a good time now, I mean, and ask you, Jeffrey, too, is that it seems when we expand our energetic consciousness, we are like, we're accessing a part of our imaginary mind that has a reality to it, that we don't need a government to ask the blue ETs to come back here, right? And matter of fact, they're here. They are here, and they have made themselves known. And you know, and it helps that somebody, I think it was Victor Moore, was he the man that was in contact with them during the whole Thule War and the Falklands? The fact that that one human being had enough contact with these blue alien races, I mean, these are hyperdimensional beings. They can appear in body form, or they can appear in the hyperdimensional realities. That brought enough into the consciousness that if I can imagine it, then I can have contact with it. In other words, the first blue being I ever perceived was a shock to me because I hadn't heard about it, right? And so, and yet I'm aware that there are many people, and if you read enough interviews and you listen to enough people, they're there. And we, you, I, Alfred, me, Claudia, all of us, at a certain probably frequency level, are able to tap into that race. And that's that aligning factor of, well, we don't need somebody else to do that for us, right? They're here. Just as there are white spheric beings, just as there are other higher races, or I just call them higher for lack of a better term, other dimensional races, they are here within in this world.
Yeah,
so,
oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I just, you know, bringing it to that level of our own abilities to commune. You know, how many people have asked to commune with, you know, different ships, or have had these experiences unexpectedly, or because they asked, or because they tuned into it.
Yeah, the too, if you read the out-of-body literature, especially, you know, the ones where the authors came out of basically the Gateway program and the Lifeline program at the Monroe Institute, people like Bruce Moen, Maureen Caudill, and Robert Monroe himself all talk about what they call the gathering. And they're exploring these non-physical dimensions. They're on the astral plane, and they get to a place beyond what they call Focus 27, to a level that they call the gathering. And what happened when Robert Monroe went there was that, and this is in the non-physical, but it's associated and connected intimately with the Earth life system, and therefore Earth itself, the physical as we're used to seeing it. But he said he got to this level, and there were all these like ships basically, and different beings out there. And he wanted to know what was going on, and other out-of-body explorers have gone and done this and written about it, is that there were all these different types of consciousnesses and beings and extraterrestrials even that were here to witness what was happening on the Earth right now, to learn from it. They said that, you know, the point that we're at in our journey right now as a species and everything that's going on, we're coming to a crucial crossroads that actually reminds me of a healing crisis, in that that there's an event that they're waiting for to take place in the non-physical, because they want to see what comes out from it. You know, there's going to be something new is going to be born, made here. And the way that they put it didn't make me think new. It made me think new as in something helpful in a helpful way, but in a benevolent way. But it was just going to be some awesome, some kind of spectacular event, so incredible that beings had come from many different places in the multidimensional reality that we exist to come and witness what was happening right now, because it was just so fantastic, you know. So, and that's what we're in the middle of right now. Anyway, it's really interesting to read about if you want to Google, Robert Monroe and or Bruce Moen and The Gathering. And their books, many of their books, at least Robert Monroe's books, are all available for free online, PDFs. Bruce Moen's, I think you have to order them directly from his website unless you can find them used on Amazon. You might have to check that out. But it's really, especially reading it from the perspective of metabiology, it's really great. They're great reads, even if you're just reading them as science fiction, you know, just as an exercise in imagination. But they really stretch your mind and allow you to really tap into something visceral, I think. Anyway, I love these guys. So.
Right. Well, so if we combine an expanding consciousness where there's literally new neural pathways being made right now. We talked a little bit about telepathy. You know, I'm thinking right now of Courtney Brown. I'm thinking of Ed Dames. I'm thinking about a lot of people, the Monroe. How many beings and humans have exercise what I just continuously say are our innate abilities that have been blocked from us. Mm-hmm. That, you know, not only do we, when we remote view, we can also remote influence. And I don't mean it in the way that we've had power over structures, because I always will come back to when we talk about the divine feminine or the embodied earth mother, that all loving caring is like being able to harness the energy of the heart, of the magnetic heart, along with our ability within the mind of perception and imagination. It continues to be, for me, a key to us being able to not only confront this healing crisis or apparent threat, but also where it's going to take us as we learn what we need to learn, or become what we need to become, or return to what we were, whatever the right words are, I'm not sure, so that we become the sovereign reprogrammers of this reality. And I find it a very individuated task that comes together as a collective one versus a congregation or another system being implemented. And perhaps that's the unexpected, the surprising part of it, is that there, somewhere, I'm sure there is a very divine plan in all of this, and Gaia herself knows what she's doing here. But it's unexpected. In other words, if we knew what it was already, they'd already have written the program to control us. We're going to have to come up with something unexpected. Yeah,
and whatever we learn here as a species, I mean, we're going to take these lessons with us, you know, long after this life is over, and these bodies that we're using right now are long gone. But the things that we're learning right now and the things that we're confronting right now, just as far as healing goes, you know, and just the spiritual physiology of it all. We're gonna use this later on down the road. I mean, there's going to be some people that are here learning what they're learning that are going to be able to apply what they've learned from their experience on the earth to help another planet that's in a similar crisis. But it's going to be different, you know, just like it's the same in biology, you know. There's adaptation, there's evolution. This is part of the dynamo that drives life. It's like an evolutionary arms race, but it's all self-contained, capital S. But there's still going to be the desire to help alleviate the suffering of sentient beings. Even when you're a self-realized soul, you know, they call it Vijnana. The Jnani has self-knowledge. The Vijnani is like the ripened Jnani. It's love in action. So, you know, Aleister Crowley once said, "Do what thou wilt, and that shall be the whole of the law." Well, Ramakrishna once said that he spits on that kind of Vedanta, because while that's true and it's all self-contained, there's a responsibility to it. And that responsibility, that an acknowledgement and application of that responsibility in conjunction with do what thou wilt, those two together are Vijnani. So with that in mind, and reinforcing what I was just saying, is that when we're, folded properly, when we're in the, our proper form, our proper character of being, and we're completely integrated, and we've ascended through the different levels of the astral endoplasmic reticulum of the earth, and we're set loose by our mother cell, which is Gaia, to go take on larger duties and responsibilities in the larger body. We're going to have the desire to help out planets and beings that are going through something similar that we're going through now, and we're going to be able to apply what we're learning here, what we're going through here, in order to help others later on down the road. So this is, it's awesome.
Thank you. I love what you said, and it's love in action.
Yeah.
And when we really just put some of the complexities can be so large that you can get lost in them, and usually you can bring it all down to something pretty simple. Mm-hmm. And by saying that, I don't mean it's simple to get there, but so wow.
Can we end with a quote from Carl Jung? Yeah,
Claudia also has a statement she'd
like to. Sure. Let me.
And I also have. You want to do that? And Claudia, do you want to say your piece at the very end here?
Actually, I think I would prefer to end with a quote by Carl Jung.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fine. Alfred, I don't know if you want to have any, closing statements yourself, and then we get in with a quote by Carl Jung.
Yeah, know that other than I'm just very, very happy to have participated in this and have that this actually has manifested, and look forward to it going out into humanity, and hopefully I'd like to see 2015 be a year in which this awareness starts to bubble up in consciousness, so that the tremendous investment of AI and the AI entrained controlling matrix, the trillions of dollars that have been invested in weaponry, is now matched by consciousness in humanity that moves beyond all of it.
Thank you, Alfred.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And so it is.
Thank you.
I'd also like to acknowledge Alfred in allowing in hosting this, and Christine. I'm sorry, in producing, Christine in hosting it. This space that we've created here is really cool, and I like that we were all able to freely express our thoughts and ideas, and it's just been really pleasant. I can't believe how much time we've recorded too. This is like, what, 8, 9, approaching 10 hours of recording time. And, even if this never makes it to the internet, which it will, but I'm just saying this for a point. Just the fact that we're here talking about it is putting it out in the field,
Yeah.
And we've already done a lot just by talking. Even, just today, if we ended it right now and just said, we're never going to touch it again, we've already done a lot of work. So, and it's out there in the psychic cytosol of cellular earth, the morphogenic field. So anyway, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I found the quote, if you guys are ready.
Okay, I'm going to just put it on the last slide here.
Okay.
It has another quote on it, but it's just a nice way to end here. Okay. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Okay, this is, metabiology. I don't know. I see it as like the mother science to metaphysics. Metaphysics is like very masculine, and to me at least, just because physics is. But metabiology is like about life. It's like the way of life. And to be a metabiologist is to be a doctor in a metaphysical sense. It's a metaphysician, but metabiology is, it's the science of healers, really down into the nitty gritty of it, understanding the mechanics of it, and these as above, so below patterns. So in the spirit of healing, I want to read this quote by Carl Jung. It's an excerpt from one of his books. I cannot remember which one it is, but I'm just going to get into it. So let me start here. He says, "This is what I mean by unprejudiced objectivity. It is a moral achievement on the part of the doctor who ought not to let himself be repelled by sickness and corruption. We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. And I am the oppressor of the person I condemn, not his friend and fellow sufferer." By the way, the word suffering is pathos, pathology, pathogen, generator of suffering. "I do not in the least mean to say that we must never pass judgment when we desire to help and improve. But if the doctor wishes to help a human being, if we wish to help our current situation that we're in, he must be able to accept him as he is. And he can do this in reality only when he has already seen and accepted himself as he is. Perhaps this sounds very simple, but simple things are always the most difficult. In actual life, it requires the greatest art to be simple. And so acceptance of oneself is the essence of the moral problem and the acid test of one's whole outlook on life. That I feed the beggar, that I forgive an insult, that I love my enemy in the name of Christ, all these are undoubtedly great virtues. What I do unto the least of my brethren, that I do unto Christ. But what if I should discover that the least among them all, the poorest of all the beggars, the most impudent of all the offenders, yea, the very fiend himself, the very AI itself, that all these are within me, and that I myself stand in the need of the arms of my own kindness, my own self-love, that I myself am the enemy that must be loved. What then? Then, as a rule, the whole truth of Christianity is reversed. There's then no more talk of love and long-suffering. We say to the brother within us, we say to these parts within us, raka, and rage and condemn ourselves, and rage against ourselves. We hide him from the world. We deny ever having met this least among the lowly in ourselves. And had it been God himself who drew near to us in this despicable form, we should have denied him 1,000 times before a single cock had crowed. So that really is a potent quote, and it speaks to what Claudia was saying about it being an inner process. And what is an inner process for us is reflected externally because we are internal to a larger body, the cytocosmos. So these inner, whether it be from a purely biological in the cell, these inner processes, or an inner psychic process, it's just as much as an external one too, because we are the inner reality of a larger being, of a larger organism, with all the non-physical attributes associated with it. So as above, so below, as within, so without, to accomplish the miracle of the one thing, as Hermes Trismegistus said. So that's my closing quote, and from Carl Jung, who I love. So I'm gonna pass the mic back to Christine.
Right. So I think for myself, to just close here, I did choose this quote from our friend Shane. It is up to each of us, so choose wisely. And her spirit is given freely to all life on earth, whether humans recognize all of these forms of life or not. Whether or not the life forms embrace and benefit from this spirit energy, it comes down to choice. And as saying that, it's also the aspect of ourself that when perhaps the word that I would choose is to bring back the sacred to our life, to bring back that moment that we embrace life within us and outside of us. We are sorely divested of it, or we've been diverted from that organic life force, from everything from looking at the stars to feeling the trees to the earth under our feet. It goes such a long way in this world right now that we take the time, and it's an inner time to take note of that, even as each breath that we take. And I want to thank Jeffrey for his beautiful work, for Claudia, the friendship and the partnership, and for Alfred for giving us this opportunity to speak with you and share this, and for all your input. It's been a wonderful journey.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yay!
Yeah.
I would like to close with a declaration of sovereignty, but not until I express my gratitude to Alfred for facilitating this. Christine, for doing the tremendous task of putting this PowerPoint presentation together. I know how much work you put in, and I really, really admire you for your stubbornness to go through with all of this. And Jeffrey, thank you for bringing metabiology into my consciousness. It seems to have opened up a whole new world. So thank you all. A divine being, I am sovereign, no matter where I am, in service to what on earth is known as creator or source or infinite intelligence. As an incarnate on planet Earth, I accept certain limitations to my awareness as part of the hologram, simulator, or illusion playing out in this location as the stage of an experience never attempted before. However, I maintain my sovereignty at all times. Therefore, no being or entity, be it organic or inorganic, natural or artificial, has any right to impose on me, plant thoughts in me, kidnap me, or limit me in any manner whatsoever. Let it be known that I will eject any invader to the void. Whether I, in my current form, am conscious of the invasion matters not. The law is love. I am the law.
Ooh, nice. That's good.
Beautiful, friends. Just beautiful experience. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Should we have a moment of awkward silence?
We've had a few of those. They can always be edited out.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not awkward. It's actually pleasant.
Yeah.
There's a stillness right now, just sitting with it. Oh.